Now I know you've all heard it 1,000 times over, but this thing right here, this is your gateway to the world. Now this is both good and bad. So the good is that you have near unlimited access to information. The bad is that you have near unlimited access to information. Now because of that, we as individuals have to set the terms of our relationship to these devices and to the world that they open to us. So in this video, I'm going to give you 3 ways to leverage the tools at your fingertips rather than being leveraged by them. Now, as we all know, COVID-19 has been a major disruptive force on several fronts. But one front in particular is the increased consumption of news and information. Now, as lockdowns and mandates were put in place early on, more and more people look to their devices to keep them updated on the latest news and guidance. Now, early on, this was absolutely essential, especially as community leaders and citizens alike. Well, they all needed to make informed decisions. But as time went on, making informed decisions became more difficult. It was getting lost in the conjecture and the hyper-partisan narratives. Now, this is a problem that hasn't gone away and probably won't for some time if it ever goes away at all. Now, even before the pandemic, the overwhelm created by the vast amount of information that is constantly pouring in from nearly every direction that was already a problem for most people. You see, the pandemic simply amplified it. And that is our challenge today. See, when you're being pulled in so many different directions, when you're being bombarded with competing narratives, it's easy to lose your ability to make informed decisions. And when you lose the ability to make informed decisions, you're allowing your future to be created for you rather than by you. See, what I mean is, your indecision becomes your acceptance of whatever the dominant narrative is at the time. This is why a more mindful and a more engaged approach to news and information is so important. See, you need it to make good decisions, but you have to make sure that it's working for you and what it is that you want to achieve, and not the other way around. So, with that in mind, I'm going to give you 3 ways to overcome this challenge and to also leverage the tools at your fingertips rather than being leveraged by them. Number 1, silence notifications. Now I know this is something that you've heard 1,000 times, but if there's one thing that you can do, it's turn off all the notifications on all of your devices. Now I know this is sacrilege to some of you, but ask yourself, how important is it that you're notified every time that someone comments on one of your connection's social media posts? Or how important is it that you're notified every time CNN or any other major news outlet has breaking news? I mean, let's be honest, just because Wolf Blitzer says it's breaking news doesn't mean that it is. Furthermore, these notifications are usually unimportant and almost always inactionable. Think about it. How many times have you found yourself in the middle of, say, an important task, thought, or conversation only to be interrupted by a notification? How many ideas, connections, and productivity have been sacrificed to these notifications? All that to say, it's hard enough to process and act on the information we already have. So, use the do not disturb or silent feature where possible. Otherwise, you're at the mercy of everyone else's agenda. Number 2, be intentional. This is so important, and yes, I know it sounds like a cliche, but the fact is, most of us are not intentional with near unlimited access to information that we have today. Now, I can speak from personal experience here, and I know the effect that mindlessness and the fire hose of news, media, and entertainment, well, I know what kind of effect that can have on your well-being. So, let me clarify what I mean by be intentional. Well, what I mean is that you need to have a clear purpose or reason for taking action. For instance, if I get on my phone, I need to know why and what I'm doing. The problem that I've had in the past is that I've allowed the phone to become a nervous habit, like biting your nails, tapping your feet, or for some of you, this is not a problem for me, twirling your hair. Now this can be a tough one to break because, let's face it, despite how connected we are digitally, more people are reportedly suffering from loneliness, anxiety, and depression than they ever have before. Now, COVID certainly didn't help with this one at all. So, when you pick up your device, get on your laptop or whatever you use to tap into the machine, ask yourself, what is my purpose for getting on here right now? Now, I know it sounds funny, but the truth is, most of us think we know already, so we don't even ask that question. But when you do, you may find that the answer is a little embarrassing. Now, for instance, when I've honestly asked myself this question and honestly answered it, sometimes my first answer is, I have no idea why I picked this up and what I'm going to do. Now, when that happens, I know that I am being mindless. Sometimes the answer is, well, I'm getting on this device to check my email again, which I had just checked literally 5 minutes previous. Now that, to me, is a clear sign of being mindless. Other times, though, I may have a good answer, like I'm getting on here to research something, or to send a message to a person or to a group of people. Now that is being intentional. See, in situations where you are being intentional, it also helps to ask and to answer for yourself whether there is a next action required. If it's research, it may be that you need to store what you find in a database or a notes app so that you can reference it later. Now, if it's sending a message, it may be that you need to follow up on that message in 48 hours if nothing is heard. Now, there are plenty of tools, way too many in fact, that will help you do that. The point is, you have to be intentional. Otherwise, you're being mindlessly manipulated by someone else's agenda, whose goal is to keep your attention for as long as possible. And since I don't want to violate that principle and keep your attention for any longer than necessary, let's move on to number 3. Number 3, remember that technology is just a tool. Now, this is one that I really want you to remember because people in my field, the field of foresight and looking out at the future, well, they tend to hyper-focus on technology as the driver and creator of the future. But this is a misplaced idea. You see, technology is a tool. It requires human intention to be of any value. Think about it. When's the last time you saw a hammer get up by its own volition and build a shed in your backyard? You haven't. And the reason why is because it's a lifeless tool that needs human intention to make it useful. Now you may be thinking, well, sure, what about artificial intelligence? Well, artificial intelligence is built on the back of human data and programmed commands that were designed by humans. Now, I'm not saying it will always be that way, but for now, it's a tool based on the inputs and the parameters that someone set for it. Now, here's the good news. In the same way, you too can set whatever parameters you want around the technologies that you use. For instance, maybe you don't have to be accessible all the time. Maybe you can do a larger portion of your work offline. Maybe you could set specific times of day for checking and responding to important communications. See, what you need to remember in this time of insane opportunity and nearly unlimited information is that you have the choice and the ability to use those tools for your benefit and for the benefit of the people you serve. If it's not helping, turn it off, set it down. So there you have it. 3 ways to leverage the tools at your fingertips. Silence notifications, be intentional, and remember that technology is just a tool. I say all that because you determine the relationship you have with information and the tools that you use to leverage it. Think of it as setting your own terms of service, ones that ensure your devices are actually serving you and not the other way around.